is when you're in the middle of 100 cars and you hear the sound of exactly one of them catching on fire. You can try to
no,
run,
run,
but at that
run
point,
fast.
it's already too late.
Oh, God.
That was a hard but valuable lesson to learn, because I realized I could clear out all of the band.
Welcome back to my channel, you bottom gremlin. Today, we're gonna be watching some more Reggie, but everything is a car. Not nukes, it's a car this time. I'm actually really excited. I love Reggie's content, and I'm glad you guys are loving it too. So, like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into the video. Alright, Ducky, if it sounds weird, everything's messed up, because I plugged in that new mic. So, like, I tried. I really tried.
The year is 2077, and the American government has just finished research on the forced evolution virus. This pathogen is single-handedly responsible for transforming people into Slavs. Shortly after, the world was plunged into nuclear winter. Coincidence? I think not. It was definitely a bad time to be alive, but our timeline is even worse, because in this world, the virus doesn't evolve things into super mutants, it evolves them into cars, meaning that every single household item is now a car. Grandma's radio,
Wait,
car.
no, that's
Collection
crazier
of
than the
coffee
nukes.
mugs, car. Your infant son? It's
Car.
too late for him, I'm afraid.
Oh my God,
Even
it's
the
a
very
toy.
bullets inside of your gun? Also
Car.
cars.
Oh
Simply
my
put,
God, I love it.
75% of the game assets have been replaced by cars.
Cars.
And society is not coping with it very
It's
well.
so good.
These motor vehicles may
so
seem
good.
innocuous, but they're actually ambush predators.
Oh.
And trust me, they will not hesitate to put you down. There's only one man who could hope
Guys.
to restore order to this world. Of course, I'm talking
You.
about Igor Bogdanov.
Oh.
Because today, we'll be playing as one half of the titular twins in an attempt to establish a thriving utopia and put an end to Carmageddon
Oh my
once
God.
and for all. Can we
That's
single-handedly
crazy.
rebuild society, or will we fall victim
is
to
so
a
freaking
cruel and
crazy.
unusual form of precipitation? There's only one way to find
Why did I
out.
hear a
But
pipe?
first, a word from our sponsor, NordVPN. A hypothetical situation. You're home alone browsing the internet, when suddenly a gang of cyber
God, he
criminals
would.
break into your apartment and start harassing you. They're trying to steal your browser history and credit card information.
Oh, no,
and
not my-
you're
no,
powerless
no,
to
no, no,
stop
not
them.
my
However,
Nightcore.
all of this could have been
Leave my
avoided
Nightcore
with
out of this.
NordVPN, because Nord will
My
protect
Nightcore
your
didn't
data
do
and
anything.
never let the cyber criminals find you in the first place. In fact, all it takes is one click of a button, and you can change your location to anywhere in the world,
We're
allowing
going to
you to access
Japan.
hundreds of region-locked TV shows and movies.
Oh,
Nord has
wait,
also introduced
what?
some
You can do
additional
that?
features, such as their kill switch. When using other VPNs, there's a risk that you could
What?
momentarily
Girlfriend
lose
is-
connection to their servers and compromise your data, but not with Nord. Simply enable the kill switch, and if you lose connection at any point, Nord will temporarily disable your browser,
Oh
thus
my
ensuring
God.
your safety and anonymity. Other than that, they also offer Threat Protection Pro
Threat
to shield you from
protection.
online malware,
What
such
the
as
fuck?
the 800 terabyte zip bomb full of Bonzi Buddy that I'm
What?
actively sending to your Gmail.
Why?
So, what are you waiting
No,
for? Go to
I don't want it.
nordvpn.com/ReggieGames
Keep
to
it.
try Nord. For a limited time, they'll even give you 4 extra months of protection and a Saley eSIM with up to 20 gigabytes. This will help you stay connected to the internet at home or abroad through affordable data packages, thus allowing you to avoid expensive roaming charges. Trust me, it's a small price to pay for your personal safety. Thank you, NordVPN.
What
now back to
personal
the video.
safety?
The nightmare begins in the character creation screen, because as I'm
Oh
carefully
my
sculpting
God.
myself to look like my body has received
He's-
a face
he-
transplant that it is violently rejecting,
He's,
I
doing
can already
great.
hear a symphony of
Oh
collision
my
sounds
God.
emanating from the hallway. Upon further inspection, I open the closet to find 3 mid-sized
That's the
sedans
bu-
vibrating
oh,
violently. Other than
God.
that, everything is normal. I have a wife, child, and a robot who I have appointed to raise
mean
my
a
son,
car?
because I am an emotionally
You
distant
mean a
father
car?
with no
I thought your
sense of
child was a
empathy.
car.
Then,
Oh my
suddenly,
God,
a
the freaking
broadcast
banging
comes on the
noises.
TV. This entire area is about to be vaporized by nuclear
Oh.
weapons. So, obviously, I
You mean
escape out the
cars.
front door, making sure to lock my wife and child in behind me before
But
sprinting down the street
I thought you loved
in the
them.
wrong direction. I turn around,
Oh.
dodging and weaving my way through a
What
series
the
of cars
hell?
as I race toward the fallout shelter. Many good people are
Did
left
he
behind.
really leave his
I
family?
do not care. And despite Mr. Russell's best efforts, I'm the first one to
Oh
make
my
it to
God.
the elevator. I look behind me to see that my wife and child are trapped on the rear bumper
What
of a
the
Chevy
heck?
Plymouth. Pay
They
attention
followed?
to the
I
helicopter
thought he locked
landing
them
in
in.
the background, because it lands directly on top of a car,
Oh
crushing
my-
it and setting off
Oh!
a chain reaction of explosions
Oh my
which killed
God.
the entire neighborhood. I was
Oh,
hoping that
that's
was just bad
crazy.
luck, but this pilot is nothing
No.
if not consistent. Eventually, I
Rip.
figure out the best approach is to just hide behind this container crate, wait for the cars to explode, then everyone makes their way to the elevator
Oh
and
my
we're in.
God. That's crazy.
We're lowered into Vault 111, where, unfortunately, the car virus has already
Oh
spread.
my
I follow a
God.
sex offender to the
The
decontamination
second
pods,
one?
only to be tricked into cryosleep.
Oh.
I escape the pod 200
Night-night.
years later, where I am immediately greeted by the cold, hard steel of a wheel hub assembly. Some things never change. My wife still looks tired, so I decide to let her
she looks
sleep
dead.
in. The vault is now overrun with cars, some of which I'm able to sneak past, but most of the time I can't, and I have to punch my way through them until they explode.
Oh my
On more
God.
than one occasion, I have broken both of my arms doing
What?
this. Luckily, the cars are packed so tightly that detonating one will typically initiate a
Oh
chain
my
reaction
God.
that clears out the entire vault.
Jesus. Oh, how did he
Good
not
news for
die?
us, bad news for the rad roaches. After a few more explosions, I make my way to the exit and ride the elevator up. We finally made it outside, where I bear witness to several cars
Oh?
majestically sailing through the skies. My neighborhood has been hit hard by the car virus, but this is nothing. Over the horizon, I see the Red
Oh
Rocket
my
truck
God.
stop spewing cars into the atmosphere like some kind of volcano. You may look at this and think, what's the big deal, Reggie? It's just some cars. Well,
Oh,
I'll tell you, not
damn.
only do I
Alright.
have to contend with the ever-present danger of a car falling from the heavens and
Oh,
pulverizing
oh.
me, but thanks to a bug in the game, if I brush up against a car in the wrong way, there's about a 50% chance it'll just kill
What?
me. This happened about a dozen times in
Why?
the first hour of playing.
Oh
But
my
if we let our
God.
lives be governed by fear, then truly,
Dude,
the
I would've
terrorists
rage
have won.
quit.
So
I don't
regardless,
know how Reggie
it's time
does
to
this.
venture forth. We have two goals. One, destroy the Institute, because in Fallout 4, the Institute is responsible for every misfortune, ranging from gangland killings to erectile dysfunction. So I'm just assuming they did the car thing too. And
I
our
mean,
second goal,
I guess.
rebuild society from the ground up. Our first
how are you
stop
gonna
is
do
going
that
to be
one?
Concord. If we want to restore
Oh,
order to this
no.
world, we're going to need the help of notorious war criminal Preston Garvey, and he's trapped inside this building. I
Oh.
made my way there and began
Yeah, you
wading
gotta
through
avoid
the
the
sea
oh
of
my
cars
God,
that
why
flooded
is
the
there so
streets. I was
many?
struggling to make progress, because for every car I could climb over, the raiders were shooting out
Yeah.
a dozen more. I
Oh
snuck
my
up on them
God.
and began neutralizing them with my own brand of
Oh,
automotive
brr.
justice. I will admit,
you
car-based combat
imagine
is pretty
that?
awkward, but by
Can you
far the worst
imagine?
part is when you're in the middle of 100 cars and you hear the sound of exactly one of them catching on fire. You can try
Oh,
to
no.
run,
Run.
but at that
Run
point,
fast.
it's already too late.
Oh God.
That was a hard but valuable lesson to learn, because I realized I could clear out all of the bandits by simply
my
finding
God.
a car on the edge of town and lighting it on fire.
And then running.
The resulting explosions vaporized everything apart from the
Oh
occasional
my
chunk
God.
of flesh. Clearly
That's so wonderful.
impressed, Preston invited us inside. In hindsight, I
Nice.
do not recommend going inside, because
Why?
upon entering, you will be greeted
Oh
by a
my God.
cacophony of suffering, an orchestra of metal screeching and
Oh,
violent
dear God.
smashing. Honestly,
He's
don't
gonna
even
die.
bother trying to navigate it.
Yeah.
Also, don't even bother trying to destroy it, because I made that mistake the first time. I lit one of
What's
the
wrong?
cars on fire and tried to evacuate the building
Oh?
as they exploded. Instead, I left too soon, and the very second I came back through
Oh
those
my
doors,
God.
the entire building would detonate,
Oh!
killing me instantly.
Dang.
Just to add
Okay, I thought
insult
it'd
to
work.
injury, the game also placed a quick save at this exact moment.
Oh,
Thank you, Todd.
dear
that
God.
was lovely. This left me with
That's
no other choice.
unfortunate.
I'm going to have to construct a bridge made entirely out of cars that span from the top floor of
Oh
this
my
building
God.
all the way across to the museum's rooftop access. So I prepared some rough sketches and
There's
got
no
to work.
way.
I started by sprinting my way up the apartment building, but unfortunately, the cars ambushed me on the staircase. After dealing with that, I
Oh,
climbed onto the
God.
roof and began the construction process. Making a giant pile of cars might seem simple enough, but there's a few things I need to warn you about. First, you may feel tempted to use the shotgun
I am
because
very
it fires
tempted.
9 cars at a time. However, the collision
Oh my
damage
God.
from 9 high-velocity
Oh,
sedans will cause a grease fire, at which
Oh,
point I highly recommend
Oh, God,
running
run!
as far away as
Run!
possible. Just kidding, it won't make a difference anyway.
What do you mean? Oh my God.
Second tip, this isn't actually a bridge. It's much closer
Oh
to the
my
ball
God.
pit at McDonald's. Because if you're not careful
What
when
ball
jumping,
pit?
you'll slide right through the cracks and be forever entombed in your own personal
Oh my
sarcophagus.
God.
At which point, there's only one way out.
Death.
And it's not in one
Death.
piece.
Yeah.
Other than that, it really just comes down to
Kabloomy.
luck. In my case, it took about 30 minutes and 97 cars for me to finally make it across. Several days later, I found
Oh,
out you can
God.
actually just jump to the roof
Oh my
from this
God.
nearby church. It
Oh
was a
my-
bad day in the Reginald household when I came to that realization.
Rip.
Anyway, I entered the 3rd floor of the
Feels
museum,
bad,
only
man.
to realize that the
Feels
cars were
bad.
literally stacked up to the ceiling. I somehow managed to navigate this automotive hellscape and make it to Preston, but he refused to open the door until I had personally killed all of the bandits.
Oh,
what
no.
a dick. My plan
Yeah,
for
he is a
killing them
dick.
was to get in this suit of power armor, find a relatively safe corner, and then light a car on fire.
Yeah, that
and
didn't
pray
go
for
too well, did it?
survival. Much to my surprise, this
Oh, he
actually
lived?
worked.
Oh god, that's... Oh god, my
I tried
eyes!
to find the remaining
Oh,
enemies,
God.
but they sent me flying through the very map
Rip.
itself. When I came back to finish them off, I realized they had crushed themselves to death with their own cars. Amateurs. With that taken care of, Preston finally let me inside and began speaking with me as if he wasn't currently lodged
Oh my
atop
god,
a
yeah, I
filing
was gonna
cabinet.
say,
He
his
proceeded
head's
to espouse
stuck.
some very racially charged rhetoric about Rhodesians.
Fried chicken.
I told him
Fried
that was wildly inappropriate.
It is
and we agreed
inappropriate.
to
Why am I
discuss it
laughing?
later. In the meantime, I have to go outside and kill more criminals. My only advice for this section is don't get cocky just because you're in power armor, because those raiders will absolutely laser you,
fuck!
and I cannot express how
Damn!
jarring it is to get hit by a car, fly through the air for 30
Oh my
seconds,
God!
wake up in a different time zone, and then get hit again.
Oh my
Also,
God,
that
that's
bridge
crazy.
we made, I recommend using that to your advantage.
Yeah,
And finally,
kablooey.
don't stand too close to Preston. Once I was done
Oh
committing
my
vehicular
God.
manslaughter, I spoke with Preston, and he agreed to meet me at Sanctuary, so we could begin building a prosperous settlement. And by the looks of it, we've got our work cut out for us.
Yes, we
our
do.
first order of business is ignoring the cars that are actively phasing through the
Oh my
walls and trying to
God.
consume Mama Murphy. Because what's more important is liberating at least 5 settlements and creating
Oh.
supply routes between them to establish a functional support network
Destroy all
of
the cars.
civilizations. And once that's done, then we can find and
Oh
kill
my
the
God.
Institute. Our first settlement will be 10 Pines Bluff. I
Oh?
made my way there, where I encountered a woman who was almost certainly experiencing
gonna shoot you.
methamphetamine withdrawals.
Oh
which
my
is fine,
God.
but I just don't trust the way she's shaking that
Yeah, I
double-barrel
wouldn't
shotgun
either.
like an unwanted baby.
Give her the good
anyway,
one,
she
too.
wants us to go to Lexington and kill the raiders in this car factory. This would normally take about 10 minutes, but I got a little sidetracked. It went like this. Wander through the wasteland aimlessly, get
There's
stuck
so
in
many-
some kind of quicksand,
come?
find the site of
Come?
a crashed
Look like them?
airplane, kill the survivors,
Oh my
accidentally
God.
stumble upon General Atomics. I cannot resist the
This
call
is
to the
freaking
void.
crazy.
Die several times in a sea of cars before finally making it inside the bowling alley. Hit a perfect strike and then attempt to commit identity
Jesus.
fraud when confronted by a robot. Fail at committing identity fraud. Blow
Oh.
everything up in frustration
Oh.
and go hunting to let off some
Oh,
steam.
God.
After that,
Alright.
I made my way to Lexington, where I very narrowly dodged a projectile car, only to
Jesus.
immediately get shot in
Oh.
the back of the head with a Ford Pinto. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the
Jeez.
Lexington
Oh my
Welcoming
God.
Committee.
Oh.
I do not enjoy their gifts. Fortunately, they blew themselves up shortly after,
Oh
and I
my
made my way
God.
to the target. It's here
There's
where I
so
pioneered
many
a new
cars.
offensive technique. I call it the wick, because you load up your target with about 24 cars and then
And you
create a
explode 'em.
long string of them leading to
Yeah.
safety, which you can ignite, much
Yeah.
like a wick.
Oh my
This allows us
God.
to detonate several atomic
That's
bombs
so
worth
smart.
of cars from a
Wait.
safe distance, or so I
Kablooey?
thought. You
He's
see,
gonna
the
die.
explosion of 25 cars sends a lot of shrapnel flying, and
Oh,
if you're
you
not
dead?
careful, you're going to catch one in the
Oh,
face. So I tried
God.
again, this time hiding behind a tree,
What?
and I still got absolutely annihilated.
Oh,
Eventually, I did get inside, and after greeting the receptionist, I was left with an entire factory
he's
packed
fucked.
full of cars.
He's so
So
fucked.
I lit
There's
one on
just no
fire,
way.
hid in the corner, and started pissing all over myself.
What? Oh. Jesus. I mean,
One
I would piss
gigantic
all over
explosion
myself
later,
too.
and I got a notification telling me every raider in
Oh.
the factory was now dead. Simply
Damn.
amazing. All that's left to do now was
Easy
escape.
game.
In hindsight, I
Easy
do not
game.
recommend escaping through the roof, unless you know how to land a triple cartwheel
Oh
from
my
60
God.
feet in the air. Because I don't.
What
With
the
all of that
fuck?
done, I went back to my favorite drug addict, told her the good news, and she agreed to join our faction. To
Oh my
congratulate
God.
us on the success, Preston decided to give me a flare gun, which I can
Oh?
shoot into the sky to call for reinforcements.
That's a car.
Thanks, Preston. I
That's
love
a-
it.
that's
On
a
to the
car.
next settlement, Starlight Drive-In. On my way there, I stopped by Trudy's diner and tried to intimidate the bandits into leaving her alone, and I
Mm-hmm.
failed. But similarly, Wolfgang failed to survive the resulting nuclear blast. And after that, I found
Jesus.
Simone engaged in a life-or-death battle against Trash Can Carla,
What?
a duel which they both lost.
Oh my
Following
God.
this, Trudy sold me some radiation medication for all the plutonium I've been
Nice.
inhaling, and then
Eat
I was
more.
on my way.
Consume.
Clearing the drive-in was
Consume!
simply a matter of filling it with vehicles, beating
Dear
one
God.
of them with a tire
Run.
iron, and then watching as a dozen mole rats go up in flames.
Jesus.
That makes 3 settlements in total, with 2 left to go.
That's
and next,
great.
we're
I feel
heading
like
to
he's
Oberlin
speedrunning.
Station. On my way there,
This is
I
like
was
a
presented
speed
with
run.
a tantalizingly tempting opportunity. A Plowski
Literally.
preservation shelter surrounded by yet-to-be-exploded cars. Obviously, I had to put this to the test. And while I was expecting to be turned into a human smoothie, the shelter actually worked. Following this, I met the leader of Oberlin Station, who complained about being victimized by a gang
Oh
of
my
violent
God.
criminals operating out of backstreet apparel. Don't worry, lady, I'm a fucking psycho. So
What
I
did he
made my
just
way
put
to
on
the
the
fens and
screen?
started fighting through each neighborhood in close-quarters urban combat.
Oh.
This area is teeming with suicidal super mutants, rabid animals, trigger-happy
Oh my
bandits, and
God.
around every corner there's a car waiting to rip your face off. For these
Oh.
ailments, Dr. Reginald prescribes live hand grenades. Use these well, and they'll make your life a lot easier, and their life a lot shorter. Just watch out for the mega
God.
cars. I spotted
When-
one of these at the end
Why
of
is
the
it
street
so
and was
big?
drawn to it like some kind of
That's a
siren.
big
But once
one.
I got close,
Touch
it
it.
launched
Touch
a
the
car
ball.
at me, at which point I decided it had to die.
Oh
After that,
my
I made
God.
my way into Backstreet Apparel and immediately realized 2 things. 1, it's absolutely stuffed with cars. And 2, some maniac lobbed a grenade
Oh
at me,
my
at which
God,
point I
you're dead.
left. If I go back in there, I'm not surviving.
Yeah.
So I entered through the roof,
Yeah,
where I
you're still
received a
dead.
notification that the quest had
Oh.
been completed. Jeez, I
Nice.
wonder what
I
happened.
wonder. We
Briefly
really do
exploring
wonder
the
what
building, I
happened.
sifted through
Yeah.
a medley of human body parts. Some died in their sleep, others
Oh my
hard
God.
at work.
Oh my
the only known
God.
survivor was a singular teddy
Aw,
bear on the
he's so
toilet.
cute.
The mission is complete, but since I was in the area, I thought I'd stop by Diamond City to see how it was coping with the whole carpocalypse thing.
Yeah.
I approached Piper, but felt extremely uneasy about the car dangling
Oh,
over
dear
her
God.
head. My suspicions were confirmed when it smashed my skull
Oh.
into a million pieces.
Dun, dun,
After
dun, dun,
respawning,
dun.
I can
Darn.
confirm that this car, in specific, is an absolute bastard.
Oh my
when I
God.
did eventually get inside, things weren't looking so good. The cars were blocking access to several homes and storefronts,
I'd
and at
just
least a
explode
dozen
everything.
people appeared to be homeless as a
Just
result.
blow it up.
Also,
Blow it up.
within minutes of being here, I witnessed a man
Chaos.
pull a gun on his own brother before
What?
security guards blew his head
Why?
off with a car.
Oh!
This place has gone to hell. So I promptly left, only to be crushed by automotive precipitation
God.
within seconds
Oh,
of leaving.
fuck!
But
He's
it's
in his
not all
underwear?
bad, because
Hello?
while I was there, I pawned my
Damn!
wedding ring to a Spanish man in exchange for a long-range scope on my rifle and a silencer for my pistol.
Oh.
Now my enemies will never know what hit them.
Dude,
With
I
that,
want this
I decided
gun.
to head back
Can
to
I
Preston
have it?
for our final
I need
mission.
it.
And my
I
transit
need
was
this.
accelerated substantially when I made the mistake of jumping on this pile of cars and getting launched into a ditch
Oh my
300 feet
God.
away. Following this, I spoke with Preston, and he assigned me to help Nordhagen Beach. On my way there, I encountered several things. One of them, a junkyard full of cars that
Oh,
I can't
God.
blow up. Terrifying. For some reason, I felt a deep personal need to
Oh,
conquer this area
damn.
in specific, so I tried. This was a mistake, because
Why?
I spent the next 30
Oh
minutes
my
dying,
God.
being lit on fire, or my personal favorite, being chased through the woods by a suicide bomber, accidentally blinding
Oh,
myself, and then getting
fuck.
attacked by a black bear that I can't
A
even
black
see.
bear? Wait. Oh my God!
After much suffering, I did manage to clear out 99% of the junkyard. The only survivor was a singular super mutant wielding a wooden 2x4. I used this as an opportunity to
Oh
bully him
my God, get
extensively
sniped.
until
Oh
I
my
got
God.
bored, lodged him in some construction equipment, and meleeed his foot until he died.
What the
Abusing
fuck?
him in this way
That's so
channeled
messed
some
up.
feeling similar to melting an ant with a magnifying glass. And personally, I liked it a lot. After this, I came across a robot racetrack where these bandits are betting money on which robot is going to win. Very exciting. Possibly more exciting is that I snuck upstairs, hacked into this computer,
Oh?
and found out there's a button to detonate all of the contestants.
Oh my
the level
God.
of free
Do
will
it.
that I
Do
didn't
it.
have in this
Do
moment
it.
was
Blow it,
possibly
blow it,
akin
blow it, blow
to
it, blow it,
demonic
blow it, blow it,
possession,
blow it,
because
blow
I
it.
could not stop myself from pressing
Yes!
the button. The bandits did not
Chaos!
appreciate this. How do I
Especially
know
with
that?
the
Well,
cars.
there's only so many ways to interpret being
Oh my
lit
God!
on fire, shot with an automatic
Oh my
rifle,
God!
and drown in the ocean.
Jesus.
So, yeah, I took that as my cue to leave. So
The
I proceeded
pipe
to the
noise.
beach where this
Oh, I
woman
love it,
tells
the
me
pipe.
about feral ghouls stealing and eating her children. And while I
Oh.
respect the hustle, I need to put them down. Arriving at the ghoul's hideout, I go inside, and what do you know? It's full of cars. So full, in fact, that I can't even stand at the front door without the cars crushing every bone in my body.
Jesus.
The desperation I felt in this moment drove me to pioneer a new car-clearing
Ooh.
technique. I lit a car on fire and counted how long it took to explode. Then, using that information, I went inside, ignited a car, and perfectly timed my exit just as the whole building went nuclear. After that, I took a few deep breaths and went back in. It worked like a charm. In fact, not only is the quest complete, but it's literally raining body parts inside. With that finished, we've got 5 settlements under our control, and Preston wants us to go reclaim the Minutemen Castle and declare that our capital city. So I began making my way there, and a few things happened along the way. For example, I encountered a demented man eating imaginary noodles out of an empty bowl. I briefly considered euthanizing him on the spot, but I decided to speak with him first. This was when I realized just how bad his mental disorder was, because he's from Boston.
But no,
not Boston.
He's trying to sell me a credit card and won't take no for an answer. After I call him a con artist, he drops the hard R on me. Well, Parker Quinn, I might be retarded, but at least I'm not retarded enough to eat ramen noodles in the middle of 4 flaming cars. After they exploded, I searched his body. This chaotic lunatic didn't even have a credit card in the first place.
Oh my god.
After that, I met up with the Minutemen outside the castle, where we were immediately beset by Mirelurks. It was at this moment I learned that AI are not to be trusted with automatic rifles, because they'll either crush themselves in a vehicular avalanche or accidentally shoot you into the nearest brick wall. After dispatching the crabs, our assault on the castle began, and I spent the next 10 minutes running around killing Mirelurks and dodging drunk drivers in my underwear.
The drunk drivers?
Great, but my teammates were quickly saturating the entire castle with cars, meaning that every 30 seconds my screen would turn black and I'd have a 50% chance of dying. And that chance increased exponentially when the Queen Mirelurk decided to show up. She was spitting acid and generally giving off bad vibes.
Can you?
So me and the boys started lighting her up. And just as I was about to throw a grenade and turn this whole place into a fish market, a soft shell crab punched me 40 feet into the ocean. This knocked me out and left me drifting through a sea of aqueous feces. But eventually I came to my senses, tossed a frag, and it was all over.
Oh, you're so dead. Wait, he got out?
To celebrate, Preston decided to give the world's most poorly timed speech next to a few flaming cars.
No, Preston!
In case you're wondering, there were no survivors.
Oh, he died.
I spoke with a dirt-encrusted woman who appears to
I'm really concerned. Like, what happens, like, when you kill the people you're supposed to talk to? Like, I've never played this game, so I have no idea. But, like, do they just disappear and you can't do any more missions? Like, I need to know.
The last 8 months face down in the mud, and instead of asking us for a shower, she wants to go into the Minutemen tunnels, fight our way to the armory, and build an artillery emplacement. So we did. Long story short, I found a decapitated alcoholic, stole his clothes, killed an angry robot, and built
his clothes back.
Very nice. After that, Ronnie gave us some smoke grenades and
told
us to call in an artillery strike with them. I gave it my best shot, only to find out that even the smoke grenades are cars.
Oh dear God. That's so messed up.
In this moment, a wave of existential dread washed over me as I realized I'm basically King Midas, but for cars instead of gold. Regardless, we've got 6 settlements and we're doing pretty good for ourselves. Now I know you're thinking, so what, Reggie? You've got a handful of impoverished shanty towns paying you protection money. You're basically a slumlord. To that, I say yes, and we're going to need to take it
that's a
even
package
further,
and a
because
half.
I have a grand vision for how I want to reshape society, and it's going to require more than a little fascist dictatorship.
Okay, I get why he doesn't wear clothes now.
The first thing the wasteland is going to need is clean drinking water, so I converted Nordhagen Beach into an industrial desalination plant. With this, we can produce dozens of purified water every day and sell it to the Commonwealth for exorbitantly high prices.
Dear God.
Also, this is completely
extorting.
autonomous, which means I have no financial incentive to provide any quality of life to the 2 settlers which I have trapped inside. From here, I went to Ten Pines Bluff and established a carrot farming operation. You may notice I encased the entire settlement in a thick layer of concrete. That's for added protection, and also because I don't believe in photosynthesis. Oberlin Station is
doing?
another one of my carrot farms. However, I ran out of concrete, so the life cycle of these settlers is pulling carrots out of the ground until a raider shows up
Okay,
and blows their
alright.
head off. Meanwhile, I converted the Starlight Drive-In into a Brahmin ranch. By placing several large cages, we can catch Brahmin and then use their feces as fertilizer for the other
I mean,
farms.
it makes
We can also
sense.
use a similar
It makes
technique
sense.
to capture
I
humans.
get it.
By labeling our cages with free chems, we can compel raiders to wander inside, at which point they become our hostages. The remarkable efficacy
God.
of this tactic leads me to believe raiders possess the approximate intelligence of a lobster.
Oh,
Finally,
God.
Sanctuary was converted into a penal colony to punish
penal
settlers that didn't meet their productivity quotas. All of the
Damn.
inhabitants were forced to sleep in an unlit metal warehouse, which could only be opened from the outside, meaning that if I forgot about them for a few days, they'd have to start harvesting each other's body hair for nutrition. On the
Damn.
occasion
I mean,
where I would
I
show
bet
up
it
and let
tastes
them
good,
out, they'd be
right?
assigned to one of many workstations. For example, Preston and Mama Murphy were usually working the wheat fields. Doesn't sound too bad, until you realize I'm pelting them with automated paintball
Oh my
guns for the
God.
entirety of their 18-hour shift. While the paintball fields aren't great, things could be much, much worse, because you
What do you
could
mean?
be stuck
Oh.
in the pillory, where I use a softball pitching machine
No,
to
not
lob
up the
empty
ass.
beer
Oh, I was
bottles
gonna.
at you until
I
the sun
literally
goes down.
listen. My brain went to the gutter instantly, and I thought he was gonna have it behind, so I'd be pelting in them in the butthole. I really thought he'd put it behind. It just pelts them in the ass. That's what I would have done.
This burns through a lot of bottles, so I typically spend my entire day
Oh,
here
God.
drinking whiskey and pissing myself.
Become addicted
In my
to
drunken
alcohol.
stupor, I also experimented with the idea of a gladiatorial arena where settlers could fight to the death for my amusement.
Oh
it
my
didn't take
God.
long for me to realize why this was a bad
Oh,
idea.
dear God.
For lesser offenses, I also have a humiliation
Look at
station
this
where
oh.
I strip you down to your underwear and fire all of your personal belongings out of a comically
Oh.
large mortar. For everyone else, they're assigned to stationary bicycles that provide power to the entire settlement. Also, I
That's-
can literally
oh, dear
program the
God.
bikes to shock their testicles if the
Shock
settler
their
isn't
testicle?
pedaling fast enough.
Can I do this to my mods?
And
Am I
yes,
allowed
this
to do this
can
to my
kill them.
staff?
Honestly, this is the
Maybe
beating
my
heart
editor
of my
too.
whole faction.
I think
and
my
shouldn't
editor
even
deserves
call it
it.
a penal colony, because they're free to leave whenever they want. They just have to make it past the gauntlet.
Oh,
a
dear
series
God.
of rotary
What?
blades that will not hesitate to put you down. You see, here in
Damn.
my factories, the worker
This is
does
messed
not own
up.
the product of their labor. In fact, they're not even entitled to the sweat of their brow, because that belongs to the desalination plant. Instead, they are afforded the privilege of living in a car-free society,
Oh.
and I think that makes it all worth it. Now, you may be
Dude, put
wondering
it
why I
behind them,
chose to
man.
farm these things specifically, and I'll tell you. It's
Okay.
because at the
I wasn't-
castle, I
but,
have
you know.
created the largest macaroni and cheese factory
Macaroni
in the
and
entire
cheese?
world.
What?
A title which is substantially
What do you
easier
mean,
to hold
macaroni
in
and
the
cheese?
post-apocalypse. By using the carrots, wheat, and purified water from my settlements, in addition to plastic waste that I've pulled out of the harbor,
Oh my
I've been able to
God.
build and operate 8
He is making
full-time
mac and
food
cheese. What?
processors, which are churning out Blamco mac and cheese around the clock. Now
What?
come here.
I didn't
want to play a
know-
little game with you. When you look at this fully automated factory equipped with vacuum hoppers, logic circuits, and a laser tripwire sorting system, all powered by a fusion reactor, which of these things do you
satisfactory?
think I had to get from a mod? Well, I'll tell you. It was the goddamn upward conveyor belt.
Oh
That's
my
right,
God, are
COD
you
sold
kidding
us
me?
a factory building DLC without any upward conveyor belts, which is
That's-
made even worse by the fact
out
that
of
he
everything?
did give us downward conveyor belts.
What?
16 times the detail.
He can't keep getting away with this. Anyway, according to my
The one
calculations, I
thing.
have no idea how much macaroni and cheese I'm making, but my best approximation is about 69,120
Oh my
boxes
God.
every single day. I can then take this abundance of delicious and non-perishable food and distribute it to the Commonwealth, raising thousands out of famine and ending countless food-related conflicts. Or at least, that's what you'd believe if you were a federal agent. Because the reality of the situation is this whole thing is just one big cover story. In
Or
fact,
what?
deep within these tunnels
Oh,
is
God.
an insane man cooking methamphetamine in his underwear. It's me.
Damn. Oh,
I'm
it's
the
you?
insane
I'm not
man.
surprised.
Yes, indeed. I'm
I'm
making
not surprised.
69,000 boxes of macaroni every day just to conceal my real operation, which is
Meth.
the manufacture and distribution
Drugs.
of a highly addictive narcotic called Jet. You see,
What?
the fertilizer isn't actually for the farms. Simply put, Jet is an amphetamine derived from
Oh
Brahmin
my God.
feces. And with almost
No
20 Brahmin
way.
at my settlements, I'm able
What
to pump
the
out dozens of it
fuck,
every single
Reggie?
day. I'm
Reggie,
selling it to
what are you
everyone, even
doing?
children. This little bastard can't get enough of the stuff. Oh,
Oh,
and I'll all
my
those bandits
god.
we've been killing, they were just rival dealers. Simply
Rival
put,
deal-
we've got a monopoly on this whole thing. But I'll be honest, running a drug den within a macaroni factory does get a little complicated.
Oh,
and
dear God.
I'd be lying if I said there wasn't the occasional slip-up.
Oh.
Ooh, this pasta got me wired.
Oh my god. Oh.
But listen, this little secret stays between you and me.
All
Because
right.
while I could be making millions
Okay.
selling pasta and purified water to the masses, I actively prefer making thousands by creating the next crack epidemic. So, with all of that out of the way, I think it's clear that we've rebuilt a functional and prosperous car-free
Yeah, it
society.
looks amazing,
and I, for
honestly.
one, am filled with confidence when I consider our prospects for the future. The only thing left to do now is to destroy the source of the cars, which is the Institute.
Yeah,
it's
it's
going to be a lot
time.
of work, so let's try
It's
to get through
time.
this as
Let's
quickly
do
as
it.
possible. At the start of the game, I allowed the Institute to steal my son Sean, because now
I didn't know
I've
his
got a
wife
man on
actually
the
got
inside.
shot.
All I need to do is find him. I went back to Diamond City to hire a private detective named Nick, but
Oh
he
my
himself
God.
is also missing. His secretary asks us to find him, so obviously I extort her for money.
I do have 125 caps.
More money.
Fine. We'll make it 150.
Even more
Oh
money.
my god.
Okay, you win.
He's
200
just
caps is all I have.
Okay, that'll do. Let's go get him. From here, I
Damn.
very carefully exited Diamond City.
I hate it here.
Yeah, very
and began
carefully.
my search,
Very.
during which I stumbled into a building called the Combat Zone. I know the name sounds bad, but the house rules clearly state no combat outside the cage, so I assumed I
Oh.
would be safe. This assumption
No,
was
you're
very
not safe.
quickly
Oh my
proven
god,
wrong
car.
when I was shot into a door and beaten with pool cues.
Oh,
However, karma comes
damn.
quickly for rule breakers, and the entire building exploded shortly after.
Yeah,
I
I'm
got
not
up, made my
surprised.
way into the cage, spoke with a burn victim, not sure if he
Oh.
looked like that before the explosion, and then he gifted me an indentured servant named Kate. I
She's
know that
pretty.
sounds like a
She's
good
hot.
deal, but she's a violent Irish drug addict
Oh.
who will sexually harass you at every opportunity. I took Kate
alrighty
to a
then.
nearby lake with the intention of drowning her,
Oh.
but instead I stumbled upon a sea monster named Swan. He's submerged
Swan?
underwater, and if you disturb him, he will beat you
Damn.
with an anchor. So instead, I began carefully and deliberately
Oh.
distributing cars all over the area. After about 30, I heard him wake up, so I tossed a grenade and ran
Oh
away
my-
with all 7 of my frames.
Jesus. Dude,
After
how did
my
he not
screen
crash
cleared
the
up, I found
game?
that his headless corpse had been launched over 100 feet into a nearby alley.
Oh
this
my
allowed me
God.
to pick up the furious power fist from his body. This bad boy can destroy cars in 3 hits. This is a
Damn.
big power spike for us. Anyway, after that, we descended upon the subway, which led us to Vault 114, where Nick was being held by raiders. These criminals think they're safe just because they're living inside of a vault. But what they don't know is that I'm
Cars.
currently
You have
addicted
cars.
to every chemical substance
Oh
in
my
the
God,
game. And I perfectly
Reggie!
timed my withdrawal symptoms to hit at the same time. And when that happens,
Oh,
I'm going
no.
to kill everyone.
Damn, alright, Reggie. Pop off.
There is a temptation to feel guilty about the fact
Oh,
that
God.
95% of my victims can't even be identified through
Yeah.
dental records, but they should have thought about that before being born. After the killing spree,
Damn.
we found Nick and began our escape, but our progress came to a grinding halt when Nick became hyper-fixated on this specific laundry room. He just
Why?
stood there for hours, and nothing I could do could get him to leave. Eventually, I realized I could move him around by punching him in the face.
Oh
and
my
so began
God.
the hour-long journey of
He did
punching
not.
Nick all the way to the objective. But
Why is
you've
he
gotta be careful,
broken?
because even though he has about 150 concussions by this point, he will
Oh
not
my-
hesitate to jump up and start running back to the washing machine
What?
if you let him. So stay
Why is he
vigilant
so
and keep swinging.
addicted?
Eventually, I got him to the objective, and we were just about to escape when we were confronted by Skinny
Oh,
Malone
fuck.
and his thugs. Fortunately, I was able to weaponize my status as a terminally online
Oh
man
my
to Red
God.
Pill Skinny into believing that his girlfriend was just using him for his money.
That
This
was the
revelation
problem.
made him feel
That's so true.
dejected that he didn't even want to fight us. The one condition is that we only have 10 seconds to leave. But Nick is currently fighting and losing a battle against a 1955
Oh God.
Lincoln Indianapolis. So he couldn't escape, and they got pissed. I really wish every social interaction didn't have to end like this.
It
but
always
here we
does.
are. After this, we met Nick at his office to discuss our plans to find
He
my son
lived?
and destroy the Institute. He tells me to take a seat and get comfortable, so I remove all of my clothes.
Oh,
we identify the man that
damn,
took
good
Sean as
session.
Kellogg and decide to break into his house and look for clues. The only issue, it was booby-trapped.
Oh my
whole
God.
thing full of cars. I wanted
What
to
the
experiment to
fuck?
see if I was high enough level to survive the explosion. So I
You're
wiggled
not.
my way upstairs, drank an entire bottle of vodka, lit a car
What?
on fire, and waited to face my
He's not.
destiny. Destiny hurt a lot.
Oh,
but I
God, he
survived
lit?
by jamming adrenaline syringes into my chest and plugging my wounds with leftover food.
Oh
Nick and
my
Kate were also
God.
completely fine. With the cars
What?
now cleared out, we were able to find Kellogg's gooning chamber.
Oh,
which had no
I
shortage
called
of
it. I
genetic
called it.
material. Genetic material which we
I
then
called the
used to
gooning
track him
station.
down with
I
the
called
help of
it.
a dog. I'm not exaggerating when I say that I probably died 50 times
Oh my
during
God.
this part. And I
Why?
don't know why. Things just kept exploding. Eventually, I was even able to predict my deaths down to the second. 3, 2, 1.
Wha-
Much like Chinese water
What
torture,
the
this form
hell?
of suffering was terrible in its simplicity and irresistible in its truth.
Oh
After
my
much
God.
hyperventilating, I made it to Fort Hagen, where
There's
Kellogg
no
was hiding
way.
out. I entered through the roof, got pinned in the corner, and then had to endure the entire building exploding for the next 25 seconds. By some divine
Jesus.
miracle, I survived this ordeal and killed
No
my way
way.
to Kellogg. When I met him, I delivered a pretty sweet one-liner and then got put down like a
Oh,
dog. For my second
damn.
attempt, I just jumped
Sick.
straight to filling the entire room with cars and blowing it up. I have yet to
Dude, I
find a
love
more
this so
effective
much.
combat technique than this. After this, it was back to Nick's to discuss what happened. Kellogg didn't give us any information on account
Rip.
of
That's 'cause
the
you killed him.
incident, but Nick tells me there's a voodoo shaman that can read people's minds, which is convenient because I just so happened to scoop up a fistful of Kellogg's
Oh?
brain matter back at Fort Hagen. So we make our way to Good Neighbor to meet the doctor. Within 60 seconds of arriving, a man extorts me for protection money and is immediately
Protection-
stabbed
Oh!
to death. Looks like someone wasn't paying their
Dang.
protection fees. After that,
Yeah.
I head to the memory den, where I am victimized by a car half a dozen times.
Oh,
I
dear
cannot
God.
properly express the anxiety
What
I
is
now
happening?
experience when entering buildings. But if you can
Yeah,
imagine
you probably
that
have
behind every
PTSD
door,
now.
cabinet, and cupboard in your house, a
I don't
car is
blame you.
waiting to kill you, then you are approximating the surrealist hell that is my reality. Eventually, I made it past the cars and met Dr. Amelia, who offers to
Hi,
put me
Amelia.
inside of Kellogg's memories to try and find the location of the Institute. So I agree, and dear God, there's cars even in the memories. I spend some time rooting through Kellogg's psyche, where I learn that he's so violent because his father didn't breastfeed him enough as a child. I also learn that there's an escaped scientist from the Institute, and if I find him, he can tell us how to get in. His name is Virgil, and he's hiding out in a sea of radioactivity. So I
Jesus.
very carefully navigated my way to the nearest clothing store, making sure to die several times
Yup,
in
I
the
kinda
process.
figured when you
After
opened the
which, I
door.
bought myself a hazmat suit. This should mitigate the radiation from the glowing sea. On our way there, I
Ah.
observed the arrival of the Brotherhood of Steel.
It's gonna
They've
explode,
got all kinds
right?
of helicopters flying
Right?
around, but they're not coping very well with the local
Yeah,
anti-air defenses.
oh
anyway,
my
I
God.
arrived at the glowing sea and equipped my suit, giving me near 100% radiation immunity. Kate, on the other hand, well, she's pushing the theory of
Oh my-
radiation hormesis
She's
to its upper
immune.
limits. Honestly,
She's
once
immune.
you get past the prostate cancer, the glowing sea
Damn.
isn't too bad. I fought a few things, realized the utility of a double-barrel shotgun,
Oh
and
my
then
God.
absolutely humiliated this deathclaw.
Oh,
Proceeding a little
fuck.
further led us to the Children of Adam. They're basically a cult that worships radioactivity, but despite
Okay,
all of their
alright.
brain tumors, they were actually quite helpful. They told me that Virgil is holed up in a cave down the road. To reward them for their cooperation,
Ah.
I decided to release the radioactivity trapped inside of these cars by blowing up their entire settlement. I know, it's
Well.
a thoughtful gift. This detonation left only Brother Ward and Brother Foster to repopulate the entire settlement, and Foster doesn't seem to be handling the news well. I make my way to Virgil's edging cave, where I find him so backed up that he's literally changing colors.
Jesus.
He agrees to help
So
us,
ba-
but
what do you
says
mean
the
backed
only
up?
way to get into the Institute is by teleporter, and we're going to need a
Oh.
transmitter chip from inside a courser's skull to design one. Luckily, I knew exactly where to find this, so I made my way to Green Tech Genetics, a building which could not, for the life of it, stop exploding.
Oh
After
my
I waited
God.
that out, I shotgunned my way through
I
a
need
couple
an
of
oh my
gunners
God
and
counter
arrived
for
at the
this video.
courser just in time to witness him execute a man at point-blank range with
With
a
a car?
four-branch
Yeah!
So I made my way up there and introduced myself.
Are you here for the synth? fuck you.
The courser turned invisible,
Oh my
as
God.
if any part of my plan actually involved being able to see him. 14
Yeah,
car explosions
no.
later, I had his brain in my hand. The only people that are capable of decoding this brain chip are the Railroad, a highly secretive
Oh.
society of anti-institute resistance fighters. So clandestine is their operation
Oh, dear
that the
God.
only way to find them is following a bright red line on the ground for 10 minutes
What?
and then entering Railroad as the password
Oh,
to their base.
that's
Holy
great.
shit. Anyway,
That's
I met with the
wonderful. Easy
Railroad and
password.
started lying to them immediately, because why else would I be playing a charisma build? They agreed to help and introduced me to a clearly
Oh.
neurodivergent man who attempted to decode the chip by endlessly typing the same 4 letters on his keyboard as I phased in and out of consciousness due to my acute radiation
what
poisoning.
the fuck?
Stunningly, this worked, and we now have all the information needed to design a
Nice.
teleporter. For some reason, I trusted Virgil to do this, despite him being a biologist and not an engineer. I don't know if you're aware, but that's like hiring a plumber to do your heart surgery.
Yeah.
Anyway, in the spirit of making bad decisions,
know how I
put
feel about
Virgil's
that,
teleporter
Reggie.
schematics to Sturgis to build it, despite the fact that I have personally witnessed him hammering a wall with no nails for over an hour. If that wasn't bad enough, he came back and told me we could build this space-age teleporter using the random garbage lying around our slums. So I did. But I
yeah.
have never felt less confident about
Yeah, I don't
something
trust
in my
that.
entire life.
Nope,
Regardless, he
Deh.
flipped the switch and teleported me into the Institute.
Oh,
where I then
it
took
worked?
the world's slowest
What?
elevator downstairs to find my son Sean, who,
Aw,
for some
he's
reason, is
grown up.
scared of the naked man smelling
Yeah,
of
I wonder
vodka
why.
with a bloody power fist, because he's claiming that I'm not his father. Shortly
You're not
after,
my
a
dad.
character named Father enters the room and introduces Sean as his son.
And the product of my semen,
Yeah.
sons.
Sean.
Long story short, Father is my son, and Sean isn't even human.
Oh.
In fact, he's a Redditor. My father's son then
What?
spends his next 20
Oh,
lines
right,
of
'cause he
dialogue
didn't get-
trying to convince me
oh.
on the merits of dating femboys.
Please
Oh.
try and keep an open mind. This is insane. Right, wrong, irrelevant. It really is humanity's best hope for the future.
Maybe.
Oh.
I don't know.
I've been a part of something amazing here. And now, after all these years, you have an opportunity to help with that.
No,
It
don't
was all
help.
very confusing,
Don't help.
and I'm pretty sure they're just trying to distract me from the whole car thing.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's
It
working.
worked. Yep.
Anyway, I checked my notes, and according to the quest map,
Oh
it is
my
at
God.
this point in the game where we need to become hostile with the Institute. It
Why?
doesn't really specify what that means, so I took it in a pretty extreme
No!
direction. After beating my son to death, I made
What?
my way to the atrium, a large open area just waiting to be filled with cars
That's
and exploded.
so messed
so I
up.
did exactly that, at the cost of my own frame rate.
Oh, dear God.
And to the best of my knowledge, there were no survivors. I
Yeah.
also stopped by the weapons lab to try and destroy their research and development
Oh,
team,
dear
but
God.
it looks like they've got that covered themselves.
Yeah, they do.
And
Jesus.
with that, I decided to leave, only to be confronted
took
by
the
a
body?
small army of synths
Oh
at the
my
exit.
God.
I wasn't sure exactly what they wanted, so I decided to err on the side of caution and just start blasting.
Oh,
It appears
okay.
that our declaration of war was received loud and clear, because after
Ah.
teleporting back to safety, I was informed that the Macaroni Castle was being besieged by
What?
Institute forces. Our Blamco mac
Not
and
the
cheese must
macaroni.
not fall into their hands. So I
Yeah,
hustled
save
over
the
there and
macaroni.
prepared the defenses. It wasn't long before the battle was
Oh
underway,
my
and
God.
within 30 seconds,
That's
a
freaking
giant
crazy.
car pile had already formed and ignited near the
Oh
front of the
my
base,
God.
the detonation of which killed almost all of my employees.
Yeah, I
After
kinda
that,
figured
it was
that'd
just
happen.
a hellish experience, with cars
Oh,
flying in
dear
every
God.
conceivable direction, accompanied by a near-endless symphony
Oh,
of
dear
explosions
God.
and metal sound
I would've
effects.
loved to see
My
this
only
part
tip
with
for this is
nukes.
to avoid using VATS, because it will inevitably betray you. At
Can
one
you
point, I
imagine?
made my way outside to lay a minefield and clear some synths, but Kate came around the corner and surprised me.
Oh,
so I accidentally
dang.
launched her into low Earth orbit.
Rip.
Never saw her again after that. 20
Yeah, I wonder
minutes
why.
and countless explosions later, we had finally defeated the Institute army. But the
Yeah.
damage they inflicted was devastating. For example, there
No.
were carrots everywhere, and
Not
more than
the
a few
frick-
body
Oh.
parts had made their way onto the conveyor belts.
That's
This
gross.
was indeed a dark day
Oh,
at Blamco
God.
Mac and Cheese LLC. I knew retaliation was necessary. We need to send a message to the Institute, and it has to be written in synthetic blood. Unfortunately, Preston says we don't have enough people to launch an attack, so I
You
decided
got
to
cars.
capture Vault 88
You don't
to
need
recruit more
people.
soldiers. It was controlled by a gang of raiders, but in possibly my most stylish move to date, I killed all of them
Yeah.
while cartwheeling over
Oh,
their exploding
damn!
corpses in the canyon below. This miraculous
Nice.
form of homicide had people lined up around the block wanting to join my army. So
Yeah, I
what's
can
the
only
plan?
imagine.
Well, Sturgis just
Wanting to serve a
casually
man in his
mentions that
underwear.
he knows a sewer drainage pipe which we can use to infiltrate the Institute. So you're telling me that I waded through a radioactive sea, killed hundreds of people, built an entire teleporter out of spare cutlery and condom wrappers, and even spoke to a woman, when instead
Yo.
I could have just crawled through 1,200 yards of feces?
Yeah.
Thanks a lot,
Sounds
Virgil.
good.
So I put on my hazmat suit and made my way to the sewer
Oh.
pipe. The Institute did attempt to block it with a car, as if I'm not
Yeah.
some kind of expert at destroying them by this
Damn.
point. After battling my way past a bunch of guards, I'm back inside, and I hack into their computer, briefly play Galactic Control,
Galactic
accidentally
Control?
shoot down a commercial airliner, and then
Oopsies.
teleport everyone to my coordinates.
Nice.
The plan is to fight our way to the reactor and place a bomb on it, which will cause this entire place to go up in
Kablooey?
flames. Pretty good idea, actually.
Yeah,
but
it
I'm
is.
not exactly filled with confidence when I look
Oh.
at my reinforcements.
Rip.
Before the fighting began, Preston asked me to give the Institute citizens a chance to evacuate.
No,
because
don't trust
apparently-
them.
Not here to commit mass murder.
Yes, we
But all
are.
I heard
Yes,
was
we
Commit
are.
mass murder.
Yes,
So,
so
I
did
put
I.
on my finest
Let's do it.
genocide tuxedo and we got to work. Before long, my team had made their way to the bioscience
He's gonna murder
department,
his team,
where
too.
I tactically neutralized several
Ooh.
highly dangerous scientists. We were briefly attacked
Go
by gorillas,
Wimblers!
very briefly, before
Oh,
making
no,
our
he
way
killed them
into
before
the
they
main
even moved.
chamber. At this point, things
Oh,
got
dear
really
God.
messy really fast, and it's all kind of a blur. But I'm pretty sure I punched
Jesus.
someone's arm off.
Yes, you
After
did.
several extinction-level explosions, I disabled the security lockdown and accessed the reactor room. There, I carefully planted the
Oh?
bomb, while almost certainly
Yeah.
developing cancer. It's now time for us to make
Testicle
our escape.
cancer.
But on the way out, I'm approached by fake Sean, who
Oh.
all of a sudden wants to be my son just
Well.
to avoid dying in a nuclear explosion.
Yeah,
You can't just leave me here.
leave
I
him.
don't want to die.
Leave
Well,
him.
too bad,
Leave
kid.
him.
I don't
Yeah.
think diggers.
That's not happening.
Yeah.
So we teleported out, and I pressed the biggest and reddest button of them all, instantly
Kablooey.
vaporizing the Institute and destroying the source of the cars once and for
Yes.
all. It's
The
finally
source of the
over.
cars
oh,
is his
and
fake
Preston
son.
did have a mental breakdown because I didn't evacuate the civilians, but he'll get
Oh.
over it.
Yes,
With the
he will.
Institute destroyed and my colonies prospering, it's safe to say we've been very
Nice.
successful. And
I
I
think
believe
so,
success
too.
is something that's meant to be shared. Personally, I can't think of anyone more deserving than the fine people at Diamond City. They've helped me on numerous
Aw.
occasions, which is why I've decided to donate to them 100,000 boxes
Aw,
of
nice.
Blanco
That's
mac
so
and cheese.
sweet.
It is my hope that this
How
will be received as a
kind.
sign of goodwill that
It
might
is.
bring our factions closer together. The only problem is that my factory doesn't process things while I'm away. Thanks a lot, Todd. So
Oh.
I went back to the castle, sat down in my finest chair, and left my PC running for the next
Dear
36
God.
hours. By
No
the time
way.
I returned, I had become a pasta god, and it is now time
Damn.
to reward my subjects.
Oh no. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. What are you doing, Reggie? Reggie. Oh my god. Okay. All right. Well, I didn't think you'd actually. This is. Oh my god. I want to see the
there it is,
aftermath.
100,000
Oh,
boxes of
God.
Blanco mac and cheese, enveloping Diamond City like a warm blanket.
Are they gonna
However, there
eat
were
it?
no celebrations, no fireworks, and the
Yeah.
city was not undergoing the massive cultural and scientific renaissance that I was expecting.
Unfortunately.
And I didn't understand why. It's perfectly good food, but upon closer inspection,
Oh?
it became obvious. All of this pasta is uncooked. No wonder they're not eating it. So what we
Oh.
need is heat, the byproduct of an exothermic
No,
reaction.
Reggie,
An exothermic
Reggie,
reaction, such
Reggie,
as a
Reggie,
car
listen.
exploding.
Reggie,
Fret not, Diamond
Reggie,
City,
no.
I've got just
Reggie,
what you're looking
listen,
for.
listen,
Gentlemen,
listen.
it's
No,
time
no, no,
to
no, no, no,
cook.
no, 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 no. Why am I not surprised? This is what a... Jesus, Reggie. He's just cooking them alive. Oh my god. Everyone's gonna be dead. What is he doing? Why?
Well, that does it for this video. We've saved the world from an
Are you
automotive
sure? I think
apocalypse
you
and
killed
ushered in
everyone.
An era of abundance and tranquility. Thank you to this month's patrons for supporting the channel, and finally, thank you for watching.
Thank you for making it, Reggie. Oh my god. Honestly, that was really freaking cool. I loved it. It was great. I wish we could have seen the other one, like, have yeah, you get it. But anyways, thank you guys for watching today's video with me. I greatly appreciate it. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, and recommend a video you'd like to see. I'd love to know what you guys want to see next from Reggie or whoever you want to see. But anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one.